No, you don't have.
They'd have more
Practical,
teeth out.
practical
That's
joke.
right. After a nice question.
Yeah.
Grandma, she's a little bit uptight. Not to worry. Give
No.
her a lead-in question.
Oh, Grandma. Let's see. What do we want to know about?
Well, ask some of the girls, the kids.
Ask the
Well,
girl.
why not you?
What interesting things? Well, let's hit Donald. He likes to talk. Let's
No, he likes to get up
Maybe
and
we
dance.
don't want to hear what he's going to say.
I think you better talk, Grandma.
You're
Oh, let's
do some of
see.
your
You are rocking.
What? Tell about
Let's look at tables.
when you were school teacher.
Oh, my goodness. That's a long time ago, folks.
Talk to Glenn.
Is that recording now?
No,
No, no.
no. Just tell us about it.
Just practice up.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, now, are you sure that you're not
Not
putting
to
it down on
worry.
anything?
Don't worry about
Trust
it.
Well, anyhow, I started
let's
out, you
get
know,
the
when
table.
I graduated in the spring. I was 18 years old. Well, I went to
You went to
summer
Oxford,
school.
Oxford High School.
Yes, Oxford High School, and I went down to Terre Haute. Now you've got that on. They got the Jimmers.
We'll keep you guessing.
Yeah.
And I went down to Terre Haute and to summer school, and I went with the Sanders girls. And I think we came home once. And so then that fall I began teaching school.
Now, wait a minute. You went down one summer
Yeah.
and you came back a full-fledged teacher?
No, I wasn't a full-fledged teacher, but I taught anyway. And I only
You
had,
didn't have to have a license?
well, sure you had to have.
But you
well,
got a
yeah.
license in...
Well,
Six
then they
months?
didn't have to have a graduation from college. When I started
You
teaching.
mean you didn't have graduate school?
No, no, they didn't, you didn't have to have it then. Then first thing you knew, they had to have 2 years of college before you graduate. And then 4 years. And now you never are through.
No.
No, have to keep it going and going. But anyway, imagine me, 18 years old, out there in that country school, and we had one of those stoves that you had to feed coal. And of course, I was a janitor as well as a teacher. And then I had, you're in the country school then, you were supposed to have 8 grades if you had that many different kids that wanted in there, all those grades, were in all the grades. Maybe you'd only have 2, maybe you'd have 1, maybe you'd have 3 in each grade. Well, I like to teach at school, but that was a lot. And you know, by the time you get started with one thing, then you had to turn over and talk to somebody, you know, to have another class. I don't know how they ever learned anything, but then, you know, the kids learn from each other.
Yeah.
An awful lot. In a country school, they learn more than they do today.
That's for sure.
That's no kidding. And, but the one reason they learn so much, they listen to the older ones. They keep
And then
listening.
they learned to teach the other fellows, so they had to understand what they were talking about before they could tell the other one,
Yes.
the younger ones. So
Mhm.
I think-
Didn't you have one boy that was better than the rest in sharpening your pencils?
Well,
Usually there was one, you had one kid that sharpened your pencil?
well, I guess, I don't know.
If you were
I've
pretty-
forgotten about a little thing like that. But I know there's always
That
some
was-
kids that want
That
to
was a
do.
big deal if you got to sharpen your pencil.
That showed that you were the best.
Yeah, right.
Well, some of them just like to do things, you know, and I rather. And,
Now, where's this voice over here coming from?
yeah. Turn that so.
Uh-oh.
Get up and do your
camera-
dance.
Camera
Yeah,
just went
he
dead.
remembers better than I do.
Well, why is that cracked?
It wasn't until a second ago. It's out of focus.
Yeah, but this isn't fair because I don't have my hair on.
It's out of focus, so now.
Right, I know. You're probably getting a glare bag.
You didn't dress
Yeah.
for the occasion.
No, I did not dress for the occasion. And I didn't have my, I could have, had I known, I could have been Mortimer Nerd.
Oh. We're gonna reserve a whole tape just for you.
Well, anyhow, I taught 3 years. 1 year, 2 years at the one school and 1 at another one. Out there about 2 miles apart. But all that time, I was right up close to, at Bethany Church. I was west of Bethany Church 2 years and the east of Bethany Church 1 year. So then I decided to get married. And then that changed things altogether.
Well, when did you first meet Grandpa? Was that before you went to teaching?
Oh, yes.
You knew him before you went to teach?
Oh, well,
No, you didn't know him before you went to teach, did you?
well, now let me see.
Because you met him after you started teaching up there, didn't you?
I was just trying to think, seemed like, I'd gone to that church. Oh, yeah, well,
Well, now, when did he give you
When did I
that
don't
beaver
know
muff?
whether-
When did he give you that beaver muff?
And hat that you used to ride in the sleigh with.
Yeah,
he gave me that the
because he told me about that.
second, let's see, the third, he must have given me that the third year that I taught school because I went back to the same school.
Well, you weren't married, were you?
No, we weren't married.
Right.
Well, that
But I
gave me that
remember he
idea.
says, oh, he says, are your hands cold?
Yeah,
And he said, oh, here, why don't you put them in this? And they got this beaver.
he gave me this
Beaver
muff, you know,
Yeah.
and,
Well, that's a nice gift.
oh, that was.
Well, now, is it still up in the attic in that tin, that round
I
tin?
think so.
Yeah, I think so.
I think. you're-
Well, it was in the attic down
Well, I
home.
think that
It was-
came up here.
Well, it was
Is
in the
it?
cedar
I had a
chest.
chance to,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
think
I
so.
thought it was in the can, one of the cans.
Well, I don't know. I always thought it was in the cedar chest.
I think it was in the can, one of the cans.
Oh, well,
Uh-huh.
maybe it's been changed.
But anyhow, I sure used that. We had, and when I taught school down there, I walked on the snow a lot of times, when, not a lot of times, but probably the time if the snow was that high. One time Earl came over to Yarren's, or to Enyards to see me, and that was almost a mile north of the schoolhouse, horseback.
Oh.
Yeah, I couldn't use anything else. How he ever got through, I don't know. And I used to walk on, I'd walk to school. Imagine that.
Well, if it was that deep, did you sink down, or did you wear snowshoes, or?
Well, no,
did you
it
just-
seemed like it
it
was
was
almost
crusty
heavy,
on
but
the
how the
top?
horse
Right.
ever got through is more than I know. I suppose, because they'd be so much heavier, no? But anyway, maybe it wasn't that time that it wasn't that bad. But I know I've walked on that snow, like that. And, we never minded the cold, you just didn't really know. And then I used to walk,
Never heard of California.
you know,
Florida.
we used to have a railroad, you see, that ran down, it's the railroad that went our place.
Mhm.
Well, I got on it. I would walk from my school 2 miles over to Lochiel and take the train and ride down and get off at Oxford. Well, of course,
Well, didn't you have anybody take you?
no, there wasn't anybody to take me.
Why? Where's Pop? You could come
Well, that was
somebody in.
before.
Why walk for 2 miles?
Well, if you wanted to go, you did.
There should have been young men around. There would have been only two
Well,
happy to take me over.
everybody was busy then.
Oh,
They had other
When
things.
you needed to go to the train to go someplace, everybody else was doing something else. No, it wasn't very often I got a ride. And anyhow, that wasn't anything.
Just 2 miles.
Just swell. That's the way you got home. And of course, then Joe or well, it was usually Joe met me uptown.
Joe.
Uncle Joe.
Uncle Joe.
Uncle Joe.
Uncle Joe Atkinson.
Then I'd go down and see when I'd come
And
home.
see Aunt Minnie.
Well, that's see, that was the only place I had to go then.
Yeah.
And
that was because Aunt Maud and Uncle Charles were in from Ohio, right?
yeah, they were still in Ohio. Yeah.
Because you had gone over and stayed with them.
I had gone over there and lived a year before I was out of high school. I went over there my junior year. Then I came back and I stayed with my brother Earl that died. And my father was there most of the time, yeah. And anyhow,
But then you were up at Aunt Ann Nally's.
I was
So-
there before I ever went to Ohio.
Well, remember that picture of you in front of the house up here at Grace's house?
When I
Aunt Ann's-
graduated?
When you graduated.
Yeah.
See that?
Well, I was up there, I lived with them 4 years. And it was when I graduated, that picture. You know, I just need my pictures, my pictures are just scattered every place.
Yeah.
And if I just only had them in, I had things to put them in. And people wonder why I don't do it now. I said, listen, I can't hardly get things right where they belong.
What is today? What's the date today?
Today,
December
26.
26th, yesterday was the 25th, I can't get used to it.
1984, right?
Tomorrow is Donald's birthday.
Oh,
How
He'll
old?
be 39.
I'll be 39.
Yeah, he'll be 39.
So
We didn't say how much more, did we?
Today is December 26, 1984.
Oh.
So we have it down on tape.
Yeah, right.
That way we don't have to write it, we'll remember.
And this is the year we surprised Grandma for Christmas.
Yes, oh, yes. Yes, it was a surprise. And oh, how I said, oh my goodness, if that box doesn't, you don't know how many times I looked out that window.
Oh.
I was afraid that Jim would just set it off there. And I said, oh, if he'd just set it, some of them would. I have found packages on top of that thing in there. Oh, yes.
Get it in the picture.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
here, I guess I've got this all written down. Goodness, yes, we must have that.
What have we here?
Oh, this is a lovely thing. This belonged to my mother. I suppose my father must have given it to her, probably. I just don't know exactly when, but anyhow, she had it. And then somewhere or other, I got it. And then it sat here for a long time, and Gwendolyn was here, and she admired it. And I said, well, how would you like to have this, Gwendolyn? And so she was happy to have it. So then here, she told me here a while back that she was going to send me something. Then finally she had to tell me what it was. I couldn't keep it any longer. She was going to save it. Rachel and
So they could see
Lenny
it.
were going to come up there that day because Lenny had called me on Saturday before that. And so she was going to show it to her before she sent it. And in the meantime, she had called somewhere or other, she talked to Kathleen and told her that they probably would be here, but it'd be after they had gone back to Chicago because they thought they weren't going to start that soon. And of course, I didn't even know they were coming here. I thought they were going to Washington, D.C. So anyway, she brought this, and it is just so precious. So I told her whenever I'm through with it, I want her to have it back.
Well, tell about the little pieces in there,
Oh,
what
and the
they
little
are.
pieces, the children wanted about these. See, there's some button hooks on here. And they wondered what they were used for. I told them that you used to wear shoes with buttons on them, and you had to have something, you put it through the buttonhole and pull the button through. And it's just the same way. And then some of them were little crochet hooks. And there's a little comb down here at the bottom. Oh, there were a lot of small things like that.
And
Did you
this-
wear the button shoes or was that your
Oh,
mom?
yes. No, I did. Yeah.
Were they comfortable?
Well, I always had shoe trouble because my ankles, my insteps were low, and I always had trouble. It says like it is today. It's easier for me to have shoe ties to tighten them up
Sure.
where I want them.
Would you like me to take this?
But anyway, this is just precious. So, and it's just lovely. You never know it was that old, would you?
No.
And it is old. It
Yeah.
just really
What amazed me
is.
was it was aqua blue.
And I don't know
Yeah.
The original
where is
color.
the best place to put it. Actually,
aqua blue.
Gwendolyn, it would really be pretty there
Right here?
on this,
Oh, right
where
here?
that is, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I wondered would you rather have the clock up here where you can see it from here as well as there? And then you could have it on the end table. I was thinking about
Oh,
that.
I think it'd be safer up there.
Where you're talking about where to put it, who do we have right here? Is that Donna Lisa and Brad yawning in the background? We'll get-
Right here.
Donna Lisa's gonna get married in June?
Yes.
Are you, Donna Lisa? Huh?
Turn around and say cheese.
Are you going to get married?
Yes, and she's going to graduate from nurses training.
Yes. Think of it. She's got this
Very
makes,
well.
this makes
Who are
her
these
4
two?
years.
This next spring is going to be ready.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
We don't know how many plans she's made yet, but I bet she's been trying.
To the wedding.
What do you have to do?
Be there.
You're gonna have to for another 5
No. I still would like to know what happened to the days when you had mints and nuts and a wedding cake.
Won't you revive an old tradition?
I think so, yes. Boy, what are you shaking your head? It's
No,
not
I
gonna
think
be a
that's fine.
sit-down
I think that's
meal.
fine. I think that's
Yeah,
great.
well,
We're going into some history?
Yeah, well, let's talk some more about things you remember. Now, as far as your mom is concerned, she died when you were young.
I was 10 years old. She died soon after I was 10 years old. I think she died in April, and I was 10 years old in January.
And her name,
Her name was Evans,
yeah, but her full name,
Alice. But my father always called her Allie.
Allie.
Well, I just don't know. I suppose his folks did too. I just don't remember. But anyhow, I was born over here north of Templeton. There was a little home there close to that house that, who is it, Donald, now owns that? Well, anyhow, Grandma used to live there. And then
Grandma Evans?
Grandma Evans. And there was a little cottage on this side. And all that's gone now, but they built a new home over there. The people that bought it. But anyway, then
Now,
we
and
moved to
then her, let's see, her grandfather was Isaac Runner. Alice
Yes.
Evans' grandfather was Isaac Runner. Her mother was a runner. Her mother was a runner, and her mother was one of that first group of children.
right. Mhm.
And we have all the history of the Isaac Runner
Right.
family.
Right.
And then the way you're related to Aunt Irma is that her grandmother
Was
was
sec-
also
her mother.
her mother.
Her mother.
So she really is your aunt.
Yeah. No.
No, she's
Second.
one generation though,
Second cousin.
yes.
Yes.
But your mother and she would be first cousins.
Yes.
Your
they
mother
would-
and she, think
Right.
how far back
I know it.
generations she
I know it.
is. And she's 93, is she?
No. She's well.
90.
I believe I'll be 88, and she was.
I thought she was in her 90s.
Well,
She isn't?
she either was 90 or will be 90.
Oh.
Surely. Because, time goes. When I keep adding on, I have to add on to the other fellow. No. Well, anyway,
Do you remember her when you were young?
Aunt Alice, her
no.
mother,
Yes.
yes, her mother's name was Alice. Now whether,
Her mother was Alice and your mother was Alice.
yes, now whether Grandma named,
Your mother after
Uh-huh,
her
I
mother?
know.
Could be.
yeah, could be. I never thought about it. Anyway, that's the way it goes.
And then, well, what do you remember about your mother?
Well, the most I remember about my mother, when I was about 6 years old, we had gone to Ohio, and she wanted to come back to see her folks. And down here where Grace lived,
Uh-huh.
Grace Glaspie did live, my
Your aunt?
grandma's father lived there in that house.
Yes, Isaac Runner.
And so, yes, Isaac Runner. And so when we came, so she wanted to come. So she brought me, just the two of us, left the rest of them at home. They're in Ohio. And we came out to visit her folks. And, I don't know whether she had this sickness then or not, but she died with cancer.
It was cancer.
Yes, it was. And so then after that, it just seemed like all I could remember that she was always sick. And Aunt Maud was the oldest one, and Aunt Maud then was heavy. But then later on, she,
Yeah, she wasn't heavy
no.
later on.
And then later on in years, then she got heavy again, after that, a long time after they were married. But there's quite a story I've been here and there and every place, only I haven't been clear around all over the
Yeah, that's
country.
right.
But in this part, I've been here and there and a little around, and in Ohio.
When did you stay with Aunt Annie?
Right?
When you stayed with Aunt Annie?
When did I?
Yeah.
Well,
And Annie Kreider, no, it's Myrtle Kreider and Annie
nicely.
Nicely.
Well, no, this was Aunt Ann. This was
Oh, Ann Nally.
Nally.
Nally,
Oh, okay.
because you stayed with her for a while.
I stayed with her 4 years. I lived there
All right,
4
for what
years.
years though?
Well, I
After your mother
graduated out of the
died?
8th grade when I was there. Let me see.
After your mother died, you came back over and started.
Well,
living with her?
No,
pretty
when after my mother died, why, see, we lived over there. There was a little house where Virginia Ann Bren's lives now.
Uh-huh.
See, and then I think they moved that little house on down after years afterwards, clear down there south and east of the Methodist Church.
Uh-huh.
And then they built that, Dave Heath built that big house. And now going back to when I went to Aunt Ann, well, see, Aunt Annie Nicely lived in Indianapolis at that time. And Uncle Will, her husband, was still living. And so she wanted me to come down there that summer. So I went down there that summer and stayed that summer. Then I came back, and I think that we stayed over at this little house where this church is built. There's always some building. Then where the little house was, well, it was a small house. And Grandma had given us money to get that little house. So anyhow, then my brother that died was living there, because he was going to school here. And see, Edward was 2 years older than I am, and Earl was 4 years older than I am. Well, then I hadn't stopped to think just when it was. It's too bad I didn't keep a diary.
Yes.
I'd really had a diary, wouldn't I?
Yeah.
But anyway, then I stayed with Aunt Ann the 4 years, and I went to here part of the time to high school, because when I went over to Maud's, I went from Aunt Ann's over to Maud's. I must have been
Well, where'd you graduate from?
Oxford.
Oxford. I went over there and stayed my junior year, and I came back.
Oh,
But you never went to the academy.
Oh, yes.
Oh, you did go to the
When we
academy.
first moved here,
Oh, okay.
it was, yes, and I was in the, let me see, Edward and I were in separate grades then. And so when we came, it was about in the winter, about halfway of the school year, Well, when we came here, they put me in one grade because I think they put me in the third grade. I think I must have been in the third grade. And isn't something going right?
No, it's just that we have to get to Indianapolis pretty soon. But no, talk
Well,
about
okay,
this.
then, just a little bit more.
Yeah.
And anyway, then, now where was I about to?
A third grade.
Oh, yes, and so then, when the end of the year came, why, they passed me, but kept Donald or Edward in that grade. So after that, Edward and I were always in the same grade, till we graduated out of high school.
Like Brad Kelly in sixth grade.
Yeah. And so then it wasn't very long until they built a new school, see? And I think that I was over there when we had, I don't know, was it 7th grade? Seemed to me like that it was the 7th grade was our first year over there.
Well, what was the academy like? It was by then just a regular school, but it wasn't built as just a regular school. It was built sort of like a junior college, wasn't it? Or a little different approach.
It was different, and they had a big, nice big library, I guess, and all. It was really a good school. Mr. Orr was, at one time, he was the principal there, wasn't he?
Or what percent of the kids around here went to that, though?
1%, well,
Not very many of the kids went to that
oh,
academy.
no, not,
Yeah.
No, because you see, if I came here when I was in 3rd grade, why, you see?
Yeah, but I mean, all the kids in the community didn't go to that academy.
Oh, yes,
Oh, they did?
all the kids.
Oh, I
were-
thought that was a private
No,
thing.
we didn't
Not
have.
at that time. When it
Okay.
first
Not at that
originated, I
time.
think it was. But then it became more of a
Because, you know, there were
That
certain-
was just a public school.
Yeah, and there were
Okay.
country schools all around him, within 2 miles of each other at that time. There were country schools.
Well, they talk about the runner school down here so much.
Yes,
But
well, that
every
was,
little school was 2 miles apart.
yeah, they were supposed to be
Okay.
2 miles apart. And they were up there in the other town. Well, listen, there were a lot, then they began to consolidate things.
And it's gotten out of hand.
Well, yeah.
You mean you didn't have a planetarium at your school? Or
No, I didn't have a
Yeah,
planetarium.
no doubt.
no swimming pool.
But, well, they were good old days.
Yeah. Well, remember when we were up at Fountain Park and you ran into somebody and you said, well, now I taught that person?
Yes.
Who was that?
Oh, that was Bernice Thomas. But she's dead now, long ago.
No, it was a fella we talked
Oh,
with
well,
up
it
at
was
Fountain Park.
her brother.
Oh.
I don't know.
And you used the Thornton Burgess books to remember the adventures of Danny Meadowmouse and all those in school, didn't you? For the younger ones? Did you read?
Oh, we
those?
read a little bit. I wasn't supposed to read, but when the children, I mean, neither one ever wanted to quit. But you know, you didn't only have about 10 minutes to read to them. Then you had to get to work. But I read a lot of those Danny Meadowmouse and
Yeah.
all those, you know, to them. And of course, the kids, they just thrilled with them.
Yeah, those are good stories.
But I just wonder how the children ever learned anything, having that many classes, that little time. But I know they learned an awful lot from each other, and they studied. These kids, and they made good grades. They really did. When they went over to took their 8th year exam, I know I had a fountain pen. They were newer then. And the boy that wanted to go over had to go over and take his 8th grade exam over Fowler. He wanted to borrow my fountain pen.
Oh.
Isn't that funny that I remember that? Oh, he thought that was something. He didn't have to fool around with it.
Dipping his pen in the inkwell.
Right. So,
Well, did you assign the kids chores too? The students to bring different things? I've heard that they used to do that at one time. You know, like bring in wood or bring in eggs or you know, is that the way? You were paid money, I guess it was. But I think at one time teachers went from house to house and stayed with different people.
well, I boarded with the first year, I boarded west of the schoolhouse, just a little ways. And the second year, I boarded with Mrs. Nelson, not very far from the schoolhouse.
Yeah, how much did you get paid?
How much? I got paid all of $50 a month. I really had so much money I didn't know what to do with it. How I ever bought that bunch of books and paid a little bit at a time for them, I don't know. But then,
Which bunch of books was that?
well, I think most of them are upstairs in that big
Well,
cupboard
you
up
bought that
there.
set of encyclopedias in?
Yeah, the encyclopedias.
Oh.
That was something. And I took them to school, and the kids, of course, the kids used to then, you know, read and study out of them.
Kids used to actually read books.
Yeah, they did.
In the old
And
days.
they studied their lessons too,
They
you'd be
studied their
surprised. And then they learned a lot from other kids. They really did.
Jim,
Well,
we're
we
gonna
have to turn it off and,
have to turn it off and then we'll tape something else another time.
Yeah.
You'll think of all the things that you
Oh.
wish you
I bet